Now we're going to get more technical, plan and profile views. So this page is divided kind of into two sections. So the top section of this is the plan view. So imagine yourself in like a helicopter and you're right above the road and you're looking straight down on the road. And the road is kind of right here. You can kind of see it. Now, this dark black line here is what we call the horizontal alignment. Typically, it's the center line of the road, not always. And it's kind of our reference point. Now, when we talk about stationing is along this horizontal alignment. So at the beginning of a specific alignment, the designer gets to choose whatever stationing they want to assign to this location. So it's an arbitrary number that they create. Now, the one thing is that there shouldn't be the same stationing anywhere on the project. There should only be one location of a specific stationing per project. So this one here was chosen 199 plus 00. Now, my rule of thumb is that you remove the plus, and that is a specific point where you say that's your benchmark as to where you're starting with the number of feet. As you're moving along, you add an additional foot to add up. So between 200 plus 00 and 199 plus 00, there is 100. If you subtract the two numbers, there's 100 feet between these two locations. So then if we go 205 plus 00, so 20500 minus 220,000 really, then you realize there's 500 feet difference between these two. And there's additional tick marks in incremental increments between each of those. So I believe this one's 20 feet between each, right? Or is it 100? It's 100. It's 100 feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 100 foot there. That scaling is different per plan set. So just be able to check it and understand what's going on. In addition to that, you see two different colors of shading. You see the grayscale in the background. That grayscale is what's existing, what we know, what was shown up in our survey, our initial survey, what the project looks like when it was originally surveyed. Then we have this black line work. The darker line work is what's proposed. Now we see some symbols here that you might not understand or know what these symbols represent. Now, what we have, which is really cool, is the methods 100, which are standard symbols. So in our M&S standards, we can go to this and utilize this as a reference. So we can scroll through it and say, okay, I see this little two lines with the triangle in between. Well, what is that? So scrolling through here, I know that we're probably going to be looking at ditches. So I see this symbol right here. What is that? That is a ditch with flow. So the designer could choose either one of these to show that. They chose this top one. So it's a ditch that flows water. And typically the arrow of the direction shows what direction that ditch flows. So when we go back to this plan set, you got a roadside ditch that goes this way. Now we've got a line here. Let's try to figure out what this is. If we zoom in a little bit more, we can kind of see what this looks like. So it's like a little, I don't know, it looks like a trapezoidal thing. So we go into this one and we say, okay, anything look like that? Ooh, that looks like this, a pipe with end section. So we know that that is a pipe that looks like it's going across the road, so on and so forth right here. So you got a ditch, flows into a pipe, the pipes have end sections on them, and that's what it's showing. And that corresponds to what is in this note right here. From this station to this station, remove 38 feet of 24-inch plastic pipe. So you remove it, and then on this side, I think it tells you what is required. You put in 36-inch reinforced concrete pipe, RCP. So now, just like how we have a standard for what the symbols are, we also, if I do this right, give me 2 seconds. That did not work like how I wanted it to. Give me, here we go. We got our M&S. We also have a section on acronyms and abbreviations. So you can pull this up here and say, what is RCP? Let's go here and see what the designer used for RCP. And RCP, reinforced concrete pipe, right there. So if there's ever a question with regard to an acronym or a symbol, please use these two resources. It's on CDOT's website. Here, I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat so you can save it, bookmark it, and utilize this when going through plan sets. It's kind of like your key code to understand what's going on. So now back to our plan set. Let's zoom out a little bit more. That's what's going on here. We've got our north arrow. The north arrow provides what direction is north, so you can kind of orient yourself around where the road is located. We've got a scale bar in the bottom that typically everything on these engineering plans should be to scale. So if you ever need to measure anything, you've got this scale bar that you can kind of base your measurements off of on the plan sheet. And then we've got a match line. So if you can see, this match line right here is station 213 plus 00. If we go down to the next page, it says match line 213 plus 00. So this line right here is the same as this line right here. So it kind of tells you how to connect these plan sheets together. Then with regard to the bottom here, this is our vertical alignment or our profile. So as we're going along this center line, our horizontal alignment, this point also has a vertical. So this column here is your elevation, and then this is your stationing as you're going along the project. So there should be a difference between a proposed, so here it looks like we're keeping everything the same because you don't see a difference. But when we go down to possibly another one, let's see if there's a good example. Yeah, it's tough to see here a little bit, but you've got this, no, that's not a dotted line, that's just the grade. But you could see a difference between existing and proposed with regard to this profile and what percentage you're going to be going at on your vertical curve. So Eric, anything you want to add with regard to the profile section here?
No, just in general, a couple things I'll throw at you is, this particular project had plan and profile sheets. You'll see different things on different projects. Some projects will just have plan sheets. Maybe you've just got profile sheets. You may see double plan sheets where you've got two rows of just plan. You could have double profile, 2 rows of just profile. So each project might be configured a little bit different. And the reality is it's all about just the information that you're trying to relay. Again, at this particular project, you could see the notes are aligned in a certain way. Again, there's no set way to do that. You could have arrows pointing to specific locations with notes attached. So you'll see different ways a designer wants to present the information, and that's okay. Again, what is the main goal? Is to pass along the information, to give the information to the contractor so that they know what to build. And then again, in relation to what Keith had mentioned earlier, this is one of those third locations you're going to see quantities. So again, summary of approximate quantities, your tables, and your notes. So again, as you're reading plans, these things should all match, especially tables in relation to these notes. Stations mentioned in the table should match the stations mentioned in your notes. Quantities mentioned in the table should match the quantities that you're mentioning in the notes. There's that direct one-to-one information. Again, it's just presenting the information in another manner to help clarify what is actually being asked. So again, I just can't emphasize it. I know I've said it a number of times. It's all about including enough information on these sheets so that you know what you're doing. Stephanie, you got a question, please.
Yes, so I am in Region 2 and I work in environmental. And can you speak a little bit more about stations? When I look, I find that becomes one of the harder things for me. Like I spend a lot of time trying to understand that before I can really understand what I'm looking at the plans. When I'm trying to identify something, I don't really understand how they are developed. Are they specific to a corridor, or are they specific to the plan or the project itself? So thank you.
Sure. I'll try to throw my 2 cents and keep jumping. So during design, a designer will create what Keith had mentioned as an alignment / control line. You'll hear both of those terms. And what that is it literally is a horizontal line that winds its way through your project from beginning to end. And when you create that line, yeah, we assign stationing to it. So again, on this particular sheet, that's what that 260 plus 00 and 265 plus 00 are. Again, that's what the stationing is referred to. And sort of like Keith was mentioning, every foot along that horizontal line represents an actual foot in distance. So as we're going from that 260 plus 00 to 265 plus 00, that is actually 500 feet in length. It's an actual length. It's a true, accurate distance along that line. Does that make sense up to this point?
Yes.
Okay.
This
And
makes way more sense
Good,
than what I was presuming I
thinking.
meant. So thank you.
And then from there, you always want to pretend that you're walking up station. And what I mean by that is if you're starting at 260 plus 00, you're facing 265 plus 00, and you're going to walk towards it. Yeah, just like that. Because a lot of times, and on this particular process, you'll see the left and the right annotation to it. It means the left side of that alignment and right side of that alignment. Because again, this alignment or control line is an actual line wandering through the project. And a lot of times you need to specify, are we on the left side of this alignment or the right side of this alignment? And in addition, you'll see a distance associated with that left and or right. So with that information, when you see like a specific station, I'm going to refer to that note that's just to the left of the 260 plus 00. It says STA 259 plus 08 has a comma, 90.1 feet left. That is it's an exact point. Honestly, you can go to that station on that alignment and it literally tells them go 90.1 feet to the left, just like Keith's drawing there, and it refers to that specific point. So that's just how we use to communicate specific locations throughout a project.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Jean, got a question, please.
Hi there. This is Jean Cordova. I'm at headquarters water quality. And one of the questions I do have is there anywhere that tells us how these station numbers, how they line up with the roadway mile markers? We put in permanent water quality features, and when it comes time for maintenance, we need to give them a mile marker. And so it would be nice to have that relationship.
That's a great question. It's a challenging one. I'm not going to lie. And why do I say that is because unfortunately our mile markers with the perfect world, they're exactly 1 mile in length. Well, they're never a mile in length. They're always off a little bit, but what should be included in a project set, and Keith's highlighting it right there, is there should be a relation, because you're exactly right. We need to relate the mile marker with the station. And on this particular project, we did that in the tabulation of length in the title sheet. You can calculate then based on a station utilizing this, because okay, in this particular case, 199 plus 00 is the beginning of our project. It's in feet. But we have a milepost that is directly related to 199 plus 00. It's 280.300. So that is a direct one-to-one relation. They are the same point. And so then as you go through the project, if somebody, wanted to know, hey, what milepost, and I'm just going to cheat here. I'm going to say, all right, you got 433 plus 75. I'm talking stationing. Somebody says, yeah, what's the milepost? Well, you could, this particular case, it's listed 264.621. But if you can actually just calculate the exact milepost for any station once you have that beginning point. So
that's great.
Does that make sense?
Much. It totally does. Thank you.
And honestly, you're exactly right. You're going to get plan sets that maybe don't relate that, that is something that should be included in the plan set. That's one of those items you should see. And if you don't see it, it needs to be included someplace, whether it's in the length, the tabulation length, or you can also find it a lot of times in the map itself.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Keith.
I would just say one thing to be cautioned about is mileposts do move around, and you don't know exactly where that milepost is. If a milepost marker gets hit, knocked over, the maintenance crew might put it, 10 foot to the, north of it. So it's still a little arbitrary when we're talking about milepost on these projects. The best way, really, in my opinion, to tie everything down, to make sure something's at a specific location is to relate it to benchmarks or property pins or something that's actually surveyed in there and shouldn't move around. Whereas I think a milepost is something that is more arbitrary than than a benchmark would be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that, Eric?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, you're exactly right. It really depends on how accurate do you need the information. Is it something where if they get to the milepost, they're going to see, which, Gene, I'm going to assume, you guys got to put in water quality ponds that will need to be maintained in the future. Well, once you get them to the location, they can clearly see what they need to do. So yeah, in that case, milepost would be sufficient, but Keith's exactly right. You got to be careful with milepost a little bit. If you need very accurate information, you do want to tie it to survey information, and we'll see some of the survey sheets here as we go through later.
William, you have a question?
Yeah, it's Mike Renner, and I'm in right-of-way appraisal in Region 1. We look at typical specialty plans, I guess, right-of-way plans. Is there a standard of what's supposed to be in right-of-way plans someplace in the, I'm looking at the website too.
So
go ahead, Keith.
I was just going to say, so here, let's look, right-of-way plan sheets are at the very end. So we're going to go to page 255 to pull up kind of what a general right-of-way plan should look like. And it provides the survey information for the project. There are templates, and there's a pretty, I think, specific process as to what right-of-way sheets should look like. Now, I think it does vary from region to region as to what their requirements are. I know, let's say, for example, Region 4 might want things to look a little different than Region 2, but for the most part, they're pretty similar. Does that answer? Oh, Eric,
I was just going to say, the other thing I'll add is, yeah, your right-of-way plans usually are standalone. Typically, they're not a part of a roadway plan set. They are very specific on what information they need to include. Again, like he said, each region's a little different, but they are, I'll just sort of say they're standalone. They are documented, they're filed, they stamp them, they sign them. They are typically separate plan sets. They're supplemental plan sets. In this particular plan set, you can kind of see from the title page, they're attached to the back of the plan set. But the reality is they're not numbered the same as the plan set because it is intended to be supplemental information.
So when we get a right-of-way plan set, a lot of times we'll have all the stations listed and all that. It really helps to have aerial photos because a lot of times, especially in FIR and FRR meetings, we're trying to determine if there's going to be any damage or any effect other than just taking some right-of-way that we need to analyze. It's really helpful to have aerial photos. I see most of them don't, but there's also often a separate set of right-of-way exhibits that include those aerial photos and the things we need. Related question on when you're talking about the stations, the one we looked at before, when I looked at it, I would have thought that instead of a 500-foot distance, it would have been a 50-foot distance with 10 by 10 by 10. Is there somewhere there's a legend on that first page that gives you the distance that's assumed in developing those stations?
On the first page, probably not necessarily. You'd have to do the math on it. But if you went to a plan sheet, the plan sheet has the scale that Keith always kind of mentioned. You could always use that scale to help identify. It's another tool to use to identify the length of everything.
Okay, yeah, here we are. So
Yeah, so there's a direct relationship
okay,
between
I
that
see the scale there. Okay, there we
and
go. I see.
yeah, and you could take that and match it up with along that
Draw.
horizontal line, and that'll give you an idea of distances between.
So if I
for
take
standard,
this right
standard
here,
plans, but for standard plans, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a certain thing. It doesn't have to be 100 feet, or it doesn't have to be
No,
50
yeah,
feet at all. It can vary on the needs of the plan.
correct. It could be
Okay.
anything. Yeah, you could have it set up to be 10 feet. It could be 100 feet, 200, 500. All again goes back to what information are you trying to convey and how detailed do you need to get. You're exactly right. That's a great point. And then even going back to like you were saying with the right-of-way plans, no, you're 100% correct in that right-of-way plans are going to line up with my roadway plans.
Better, yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna use the same stationing. And when we get into the specialty plans, we'll talk about that also. All the specialty units, anybody who's generating plans, you want to use the exact same stationing. They should be using the same stationing because you want to talk apples to apples. If everybody had their own stationing and are labeling things, you'd be talking apples and oranges and you'd never be able to communicate with one another. So yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up.